Hey, there's a recording
Recording
in progress.
in progress.
Those are the wrong notes. I should probably bring up the correct notes.
I'm 7.5 minutes into Stan Helsing and I really hate it.
Yeah, the spoof movie is the Achilles heel of this particular plan.
I mean, is it a spoof movie even? It just feels like a shitty Kevin Smith movie with like a lot more money.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, that should make for a better
Well,
podcast than a movie, at least, right?
we'll have plenty to talk about our first one. We'll see what happens when we get to like the fifth or sixth.
Well, this is the second, man. We already had 2001: Space Travesty, right?
Yeah, this is different though.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm telling you, this is different. This is
Because
this is different.
this is in the run of just
This is post. The thing is, like, I guess the analogy would be that 2001: A Space Travesty is to like the mid 90s knockoffs of Airplane what this is to the mid 2000s knockoffs of Scary Movie 3.
right, which is
So it's
somewhere
like
on our
this is
list as
like
well.
8 generations.
Hey,
I
where'd
saw
you
that in the
go?
theater. What?
What'd you see in the theater?
Scary Movie 3?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's on the shit list.
1
If I
and
remember
2 were
correctly.
both good. I We'll get into it whatever year that is. Did you see
Yeah.
my note about I have a Lawrence of Arabia guy? Do you have anybody for that yet?
Um, Monday, Twilight Zone. Brian showed interest in that, and I haven't seen that movie before, but I could maybe just see if he wants to do Once Upon a Time in America because that's a similarly long and bloated epic.
Yeah, my friend Blake, who works on a lot of films and has worked with me on films, also just went to Egypt. So I
Okay.
think he's like a pretty good fit for this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't. I think it's a. I can even look at what was written and double check on that. But I'm pretty sure that I we can make an easy bump there because I think the reasoning was just like, hey, maybe that one.
He said he's never done podcasts anyway. He'll be like,
Yeah,
uh,
he already did a Twilight Zone. Let's see what was
cool.
said. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, the insane penis shrines. You've heard about that stuff in right
Breath
Japan.
of the Tears of the Kingdom.
What? No penis shrines.
I mean, okay, in real life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I was like, sorry, I've been playing too much Zelda, and if you say the word shrines and the word penis, you have to clarify that it's not in the Zelda game because there's a lot of penises and I mean penises that people make in that game, but shrines that are already there.
this is in front of a house close to here. I can walk there within 10 minutes. And there. Hold on, I'm trying to hold my phone up. If you can see that, yeah.
Man, I hope I find a statue like that in Tears of the Kingdom.
And then behind the house is like an Ampamon playground because they do have a kid now. So I guess it worked.
Ampamon is like the product of penis shrines. That's canon now.
Right, exactly. So they do have a kid or kids. Um, I heard enough screaming. I think it's two kids, but I'm not sure.
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway,
So
it's
wait,
pretty
you're saying
hardcore. Just to,
that's just like people who just put a penis thing in front of their house?
a penis Buddha there, right?
I
It's
thought
been
you were
sitting
talking
there.
I thought it was like at a like specific like place to go and
No, it's just sitting outside these people's house.
wow, that's
It's been
that's
there for
wild.
5 years.
That's hilarious.
I think the house is about 5 years old. I think it's been there since the construction. It was constructed with the house. Like, don't forget the penis shrine.
I want to believe that it's like the guy had it made for the house in order to get him sex
Hmm.
and then like sex came to him and then he was just like,
Because
"Yes, I did it."
that's such a turn on, right? So, but yeah, it is. I just can't imagine. Like, yeah, let's put that on, honey. Let's put that on out in front of the house. That makes sense, right?
I bet in Japanese culture you're just supposed to pretend you don't see it.
I guess. How are the kids gonna react to that when they're like five or something?
They're supposed to pretend they don't see it.
I
They're
guess,
taught
yeah.
they're taught at birth you didn't see it. And And that's the lecture I gave you on Japanese culture.
Okay. I can't quite see all my notes at once, but pretty close, so that's cool.
This is like the longest I've waited after watching a thing to record a podcast. So
I think
I hope I remember it.
you have a plot description, right? Summary, so to speak.
Yep,
Okay,
I
well
do.
that should cover us.
That's a good point.
Who wants to start this one? You or me?
I'll do it. Welcome to Podcast 1999, the podcast about Space 1999 from the year 1975.
The first 1999 you said sounded weird, like you weren't sure that was the year, but it's a pretty easy year to remember, I think.
But it's weird because the year 1999 is like closer to the year 1975 than it is to the year 2023.
Well, so are the styles of the show, so it works out okay.
I think these styles of the show are timeless.
Oh, they're great, but they definitely smell of the 70s too, right? It's like the best of the 70s, like the contemporary resort at Disney World or something.
The smell is
which isn't contemporary at all now. Now it's like super retro future.
I definitely remember riding the monorail last time I was at Disney World, which was 10 years ago, and feeling like not only did I feel like the monorail was going to break down, but I felt like the hotel was going to fall apart while I was in the monorail station. But
did it?
I don't know.
Okay.
Ask me again in a year. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
If DeSantis like literally sabotages it with like a stick of dynamite. And
it is a matter of life and death, isn't it?
Yes, it is matter of life and death.
Which is
there's no A today.
Today's episode. There's no A. What? Huh?
Hi, I'm Mark. This is Matt.
I'm Matt.
There's no A in the title. It is matter of life and death.
Oh, is it? Okay. Oh, because he's matter, right? Yeah, he's okay.
He's the only person who's matter.
That's why you do the trivia, because so you learn these things.
Yes, it's amazing how the trivia told me why it was called that. It didn't actually. This is the trivia, though. Matter of Life and Death is episode 2, season 1 of Space 1999. It aired on November 27th, 1975. The screenplay was written by Art Wallace and Johnny Byrne. The former wrote 2 episodes of Star Trek, and the latter will be on deck to write a total of 11 episodes of Space 1999. This episode was directed by Charles Crichton or Crichton, possibly.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't have Michael Crichton's spelling in front of me.
Right.
He'll be on deck for a total of 14 episodes of Space 1999, as well as the film Alien Attack.
Yeah, he previously learn how to say his name then.
Well,
14 times you'll have to screw it up.
I will screw it up 14 times.
Okay.
He previously directed 2 episodes of Danger Man, as well as films like Here Come the Double Deckers and The Strangers in Between. Wait, The Strangers in Between is the title of the film. I didn't capitalize all of it.
Oh, okay.
As well as several educational and training videos, many featuring John Cleese. His final film would be A Fish Called Wanda in 1988. Our guest star this week is Richard Johnson as Lee Russell. He was a British actor who is one of many people who turned down the role of James Bond. He continued working until his death in 2015. You can see him in other works such as Turtle Diary, The Crucifer of Blood, and The Bleak Old Shop of Stuff.
Well, you're telling me we don't live in the reality where James Bond is Dick Johnson?
James Bond, he was the real James Bond. I feel like he's not even the first person we've talked about turning down James Bond, coming off of doing like 17 Prisoner episodes.
Yeah, but he's the first one that could be nicknamed Dick Johnson.
Maybe. I mean, you could call anybody Dick Johnson if you want.
Yeah. They might not respond though.
Anyway, Dick. Apparently, one of the parrots used in the Terra Nova scenes learned the word cut and would always say cut right after the director yelled action. This parrot was replaced.
I was really excited because at first, in England, I thought you had an N in that word too. And I was like, that would be like hysterical if the parrot was doing that on set.
Well, it's like now parrots can like order things through your Alexa. That's probably why you never see parrots in stuff anymore.
Except on the set of Terra Nova.
They're all fired. Well, I
That's
mean,
where you'll
any
find
more
repairs.
meanings in the past 55 years. Wait, I might be overdoing that.
Was that your trivia?
40,
Were you still going?
47 years. I'm
Okay.
going to now do a little spotlight on one of our main casts since we're
Oh
going to
yeah,
be
yeah, that's a good
for a
idea.
while. We'll start with Martin Landau because he is the commander. Uh, Born in 1928 in Brooklyn, New York. Hey, happy 95th birthday. He was hired by the New York Daily News at age 17, where he soon became an illustrator. His real passion was acting. In 1951, he made his debut in a play called Detective Story and made his off Broadway debut the same year. He was accepted into the Actors Studio in 1955, along with Steve McQueen, and the three of them. Wait. And they
Three,
spent the 50s riding around on motorcycles with James Dean. I put the three of them in the wrong place in that sentence.
because you hadn't
Uh,
mentioned James Dean yet.
Well, now James Dean is here, and soon he'll be gone. And also acting. And also acting. This is why I shouldn't wait till after I've written my notes to do these because I forgot what the pacing of any of this was. He
Mm.
made his movie debut in 1959 in the film Pork Chop Hill, but it was his role in Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest as a heavy named Leonard that really put him on the map. You can actually hear an episode of Films and Filth that we did on that film from earlier this year. He appeared in a few more TV and film projects the next few years, including 2 Twilight Zone episodes, and was Gene Roddenberry's first choice to play Mr. Spock on Star Trek, but the role obviously went to Leonard Nimoy, who in turn would replace Martin Landau on Mission Impossible. Speaking of Mission Impossible, that show began in 1966 and co-starred Landau and his wife Barbara Bain, who he married in 1957. Landau played a character named Roland Hand. Roland Hand? Roland Hand? Roland
I want to
Hand?
say Roland, but I don't know.
Roland Hand. He was rolling. He was
Last
always
year,
rolling joints in this
last
show. He
I was
was
just
only
saying
supposed.
last year when I had some money to blow, I ended up getting animated Batman and Batman 66 instead of the Mission Impossible box. So I could be super familiar with it, but now I'm very familiar with Batman.
Well, get this. I bought the animated Batman box set about a year ago, and I haven't watched any of it yet.
I think I watched 3 episodes on that. I watched an awful lot of Batman 66 though. So
I gotta say, if I bought Batman 66 at the same time, I still wouldn't have watched any of either of them.
mm.
Um, anyway, where was I on this paragraph? Mission Impossible began in 1966. Okay, now I jumped back too far. Hey, if you have ADHD, get treatment. That's public service announcement. Lando is only supposed to be an occasional guest star, but when producers had issues with the star Stephen Hill, Landau was made a series regular to take up the slack. He got several Emmy nominations for the role and won a Golden Globe. In 1969, when star Peter Graves was given a contract that paid him more than Landau, he and Bain both quit because he had a contract that guaranteed him equal pay with anyone else in the series. And the show went on another 4 years without them. I don't really understand how you can have a contract and they could just break the contract. I don't know if that
Wasn't
means
that the
that.
deal with the Friends? When Friends they were all supposed to get paid the same, and they all wanted way too much money, and that was kind of a thing in the '90s.
I think there was something where the head of the network put an ad out in Variety that said, "Coming soon, the 3rd season of Friends, the final season. Say goodbye to Friends," and then they folded immediately. Something really funny like that.
I should have done that with
Uh,
Mission Impossible.
They should have done that with Friends and canceled it in season 3.
Mm.
Anyway, he took a few more roles, including a pilot for a Steven Spielberg show called Savage that did not get picked up, and he and Bain both moved to England in the 70s to star in Space 1999. Hey, that's the show we're talking about. His and Bain's careers both stalled after the series was over, and he took occasional roles in films like Death Blow, A Cry for Justice, that is one title, and The Return of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman. They divorced in 1993 and neither ever remarried. However, people of a certain age probably know him from his portrayal of Bela Lugosi in Tim Burton's 1994 film Ed Wood, for which he won a Best Supporting Actor Oscar.
Actor. Mark's brain is exploding today.
He continued acting until his death in 2017 at the age of 89. His final role was Abe and Phil's Last Poker Game.
It's a good last
Trivia
movie to
end.
do. I mean, just because it's last
It has
poker
the
game.
word
That's
last in it.
for true. Yeah. Here's a question: what director, not from sudden death, this is like just their career like fades out. Are there any directors who ended with one of their best movies? This is directors, not actors.
Not sudden death like they retired.
Yeah, just like they, like Hitchcock made Family Plot and died a few years after that, but Family Plot is definitely not one of his best movies.
I don't even know what Family Plot is.
That's Hitchcock's
Um,
last movie.
well,
Okay.
we can definitely rule out George Lucas. We can rule out Ridley Scott.
Hmm.
Um, I
Could
would
Ridley
say
have one
Tarrant.
more in him? Ridley could
Do
have one more in
you
him.
have any faith that it'll be good? I mean, it'll be one of his best.
I mean, no, but it's for some reason that seems like in the realm of possibility that he could like bop out a real good one at the end.
I don't.
Sorry,
Yeah,
you had
there are a
a
lot
better.
of. I've seen not all of his recent films, but a few of them, and it's like usually there are at least some scenes that are pretty decent. Um,
You had a
yeah,
name. You were naming someone.
I was gonna say Tarantino has probably the best shot at that.
Oh yeah, because he's like next one's my last one. So if he manages not to make a piece of crap, then he's good for that.
I don't believe anyone when they say next one's my last one, but I don't think he's made anything that's just total garbage, except maybe Death Proof, which I mean, most people wouldn't, many people would not even
It was
call that
also
a bad
supposed to
movie.
be garbage. The point of the movie was to be garbage.
Yeah, it was that compilation called Garbage House.
Yes, garbage house. I guess you got a plot for us then.
I do, but do you have an answer to that question? Can you think of a director that ended on a good note and then retired?
Oh no, no, no. That's why I was asking you the question.
No, I
I
don't. I think that generally, much like politicians, directors retire much later than they should.
Right, because there's a lot of actors who do have that like last blowout, right? But that's basically because they're being wheeled in to do what they do best for a few minutes, and then they die, right? You can do that
Well,
with actors.
I think that when you're an actor, you can kind of take something from your imminent demise or from old age. Like you could use that to propel you into greatness. I think that's kind of what Ed Wood was, because it wasn't just. Not only was that basically the year after he got divorced, or I guess they filmed it the year he got divorced, but I mean, it was him playing a man who was sort of. I mean, Lugosi's story is interesting, and that was like the end of his life, and he's sort
Right.
of playing somebody really important in a really good movie. Like,
Yeah, I'm
uh,
just kind of throwing out there that an actor Demetrius can be used to better. I mean, Vincent Price and Edward Scissorhands. There you go. There's a
yeah,
pretty blowout ending for an actor, right? I mean, in a good
I mean,
way.
I think in most cases, I can't think of a good actor who did a lot of like bad stuff towards the end of their life, aside
Well,
from
there's
like,
people that kind of just fade away, and you're like, hey, this like Sean Connery, right? He didn't act for the last like
yeah, he
almost 20 years of his
retired,
life. Exactly. So
and I mean, okay, I did fall asleep almost immediately in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but I'm sure that wasn't his fault.
yeah, he could have been a wizard.
I did, yeah, I'm sure he did great. Um, I don't know. Alec Guinness was good as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, but he didn't like that role.
I think I know. That's why he was incredibly drunk during the first movie. You can tell. You could tell that he's incredibly drunk during the first movie and that he's incredibly sober when he shows back up as a Force ghost.
Right. That
Like I
sounds
guess
fun.
death does sober you up pretty good.
Death is very sobering. Um,
He stopped doing death sticks.
as it might be in this episode, I guess.
As it
Matter of
in
life
this
and death.
episode, I'll tell you what's the matter. What's the matter with you? The summary of the plot. While returning from checking out a nearby planet called Terra Nova that seems like it could support human life, two men on an Eagle shuttle are electrocuted and pass out. When the ship returns to Moonbase Alpha, there is suddenly a third person on board, and it's Helena Russell's husband Lee, who allegedly died in Jupiter's orbit 5 years earlier. She starts communicating with him while he is in the medical unit. Meanwhile, the crew has been observing his vital signs, and it seems like he isn't actually alive and may, in fact, only be showing vitals when Helena is in the room with him. Lee starts warning people not to visit Terra Nova, but then when his warnings go unheeded, he appears to die, and tests seem to reveal that his body has started turning into antimatter. Commander Koenig, believing that they are all free from Lee's influence, immediately leads a search party to land on Terra Nova and investigate. They find a tropical paradise with space palm trees and space parrots. Victor then interrupts their space paradise vacation, telling them that the seals on the Alpha are weakening and all the plastics are melting. As Koenig works to recall the landing party, the situation seems to get worse. Paul's laser explodes, killing him. Sandra suddenly loses her vision. The eagle they flew in on explodes. The moon explodes. A dust storm envelops them, and Koenig is crushed by a rock. Lee then appears to Helena alive. He explains that the incident in Jupiter's orbit changed him into something else, and coincidentally ended up on that planet, but that she and the rest of the crew cannot stay there. He tells Helena that she can see what she wants to see, and when she opens her eyes, the crew and the tropical paradise have returned, as well as Moonbase Alpha. She and Koenig, along with a search party, return to Moonbase Alpha and continue their journey to look for planets that can actually sustain human life without doing what that planet just did.
So you're gonna go along with this is the Total Recall ending, and the rest of the show, the rest of the series is a fever dream.
Oh no, this is a Gilligan's Island ending.
Oh, okay. How so?
Um, it's like everything is perfect except whoops, you can't go there. Keep going, keep
I guess
moving,
it's I guess
move
it's a
along.
I guess it's a reverse Gilligan's Island
Okay,
ending
yeah.
because
Well, if the island is
it'd be like they live on Terra Nova and then Moonbase Alpha is passing by and it makes all your plastic melt.
maybe Lost in Space is a better metaphor
Okay, yeah, yeah, that kind of works, I guess. At least
for one
first
of the
season,
two seasons where they're actually flying around.
right? um, yeah, I kind of felt like Terra Nova was like Planet Les Baxter with a combination of the music and the parrots, which I like because I don't think Lost in Space or original Star Trek quite ever got the exotica vibe like they did in this episode.
Yeah, it was close. I continue to really appreciate the style of this series.
Like I
However,
like I would not have been surprised to see them strolling around with like a zombie in hand, four kinds of rum, Mai
this was
Tai.
unfortunately one of those things where I was interested in what was happening until I realized that what was happening was 2001: A Space Odyssey. And then but then I'm like, "Oh, but then Prometheus came along and ripped this off." So that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean the 2001 ending is well, I guess this is also somewhat ambiguous, but
Or
not in the way that that's
2010? Is that a
maybe.
better one? Cuz
Yeah,
it is.
because then we see what happens to him afterwards. That's a better one, yeah. Because
Yeah, it is cuz 2001 works better because you don't really know what's happening. And in 2010 it's like, "Hey, it's me, Dave. I am Space Fetus. Don't go to Terra Nova. I mean, Europa."
okay. So when did Arthur C. Clarke write 2010? Then that would be an interesting bit to learn because this is it this first or that first. I think the movie is
1982.
somewhat different than the book too. In that case. Oh, okay.
Well,
We're gonna give Space
okay.
1999 point then.
Yeah, but that's still a sort of I was around Jupiter and I got changed into something. Still is I don't know. I haven't read the story that 2001 is based on. It might have more of those elements in it. Have you read the or book or the story?
I'm not. I don't think so. It's on my iPad,
Okay.
but well,
Well, there you
it
go.
does explain a lot more. Like he's transformed, blah blah blah. Of course, in 2010, at least the movie. I'm not sure about the book, but he goes.
Well,
I think the idea is that you have to turn your nukes off. Is that it? Earth has to unnuke themselves.
what 2010?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe that's an Arthur C. Clarke strain. Yeah. Anyway, I watched the Space 1999 episode and did not drown. I got a few months before I have to think about 2001 again. So,
Okay, well, I'm looking at the summary of the book for 2001 and it's more like the end of Contact where it's like Dave kind of gets shown a bunch of stuff and then he's turned into the Star Child at the end.
Okay,
And then
because
then he goes back to Earth and detonates a warhead.
okay,
So
that's what I guess that's from the book then,
cool.
because the movie definitely does. Well, it shows him rolling up his space fetus at the end, but it doesn't show him blowing up a warhead in the movie. That would have been a
Yeah,
cool ending.
this is one of those where once again Kubrick made it more interesting than the writer did. Or once again, or before The Shining.
Yeah. So the one that came popped in my head a little bit on this is the Star Trek episode, The Alternative Factor, where we have Lazarus fighting his antimatter self through space, time, and infinity. And it's like a pretty bad Star Trek episode, but I love it because it's shot so weird and has so many weird psychedelic effects that it's like it's one of those where I know this episode is terrible, but I still love it. Whereas this one is, pretty good.
Yeah, I'm looking at that episode and I've definitely seen it quite a while ago.
Yeah, you get the image of the dude like fighting himself in like the weird
Mm-hmm.
antimatter space. So this guy, Lee in this one's a lot more chill. Well, no, he sounds like Satan sometimes, so that's not chill.
It's I have complicated feelings about it because this definitely feels like we're throwing hard sci-fi out the window immediately because it's kind
Yeah,
of entirely ridiculous that you found a
yeah.
dead guy and it's more like a ghost story, but
But then, like you said, the whole like antimatter matter thing. I mean, it made me think of also a much later thing with Event Horizon, where with Sam Neill, like I feel like if you hung up with this guy like long enough, you're gonna end up with Event Horizon stuff. That's why you get off the planet.
yeah, and the thing is Event Horizon was basically better until the thing where Sam Neill just shows back up as a muscle-bound dude and is just trying to fight everyone with a flamethrower. It's
What's wrong with that?
just like the movie Sunshine, where I feel like the first 2/3 of that are incredible, and then the end of it is just a bad version of Event Horizon. Like
Yeah, I don't know.
it's
I
a
felt
weird
that
thing
the first
where
time I saw Sunshine, but once I knew that the movie was going to take that turn and watched it, I didn't mind it so much.
hmm, well, maybe I'll rewatch. I mostly don't like Danny Boyle, but um anyway, I do like the thing is though I do like Alex God, what's his name? The writer of it. The guy who
But
also wrote Ex Machina and Alex Garland. I like
okay,
Alex Garland a lot. Um, but I feel like just generally films and TV shows that have like omniscient guy in space just cannot resist having them eventually get all murdery at the end of whatever it is.
now
And
this
this
could
is
that
at
could be an
least
ordery thing. If this were like 6 episodes in, which I think is production order, would it land better with you? Yeah, as episode 2, it's kind of
yeah.
like yeah, like straight into
I
crazy town.
well it's not just that, but I don't necessarily want to know like if Dr. Russell's dead husband shows back up immediately. That's that is not great for like suspense. Like I just met this woman.
I
Yeah.
guess, although you don't want to get too far away, because if he disappeared around Jupiter, you don't want to be too far out of the solar system before we run
I
into
mean,
this guy,
what does
right?
he care? He can do anything he wants. He can make parrots. I mean, it's just this thing where I haven't had enough time to sit with like with Dr. Russell's grief or solitude or whatever it is that I mean, but to be fair, she basically was like, yeah, it's like I mean, that was also kind of a realistic reaction where she's like, yeah, I've already grieved this guy. I already feel like he's dead, so I don't really feel anything, which is kind of the appropriate reaction since he was basically not a person.
Oh yeah, I mean, he out of what, 15, is he, let's say 15 minutes of screen time, does that sound about right for this guy? Like
Yeah,
time he's on
probably.
screen. So I feel like
Probably.
he only talks like a normal person for 2 of those minutes, probably.
I mean, barely even that. He might have just forgotten to do the character when he did that.
That could be the case. I'm sitting here. I don't remember if my set here gives me production order or not, but
I
yeah.
mean, it also kind of reminds me of maybe a better version of the ghost sex episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a great episode too, though.
I mean, it is. It was especially great when I was like 13 years old and watching it, but
I mean, it's
for
great
the
for all the
first
wrong
time.
reasons.
Yeah,
Weirdly, my favorite
great
TNG
reference.
episodes are, and I'm not actually calling that my favorite one, but my favorite TNG episodes tend to be Dr. Crusher episodes, which I find interesting. Like Remember Me, where everyone starts disappearing from the ship, and of course, cause and effect, the ship blows up. Both of those are technically like Dr. Crusher episodes.
I think she's great. She acts like a doctor.
Now, Pulaski acts like a doctor.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's like you hate Pulaski, but it's at the same time you have to respect Pulaski for making you hate her so much.
Well, she's almost always right. That's the problem, but she just
Yeah.
does it. She's right very aggressively and like in a way that makes people unhappy.
Yeah, she's like that thing where somebody comes over. It's like you want somebody to be able to tell you the hard truths that your friends won't necessarily tell you, but then it's like as if the one person who's like that is also really obnoxious about it. Like dear, you really should think of losing some weight.
Well, they
It's
wanted
like
her to.
that.
They wanted to make her more like a McCoy, right? And
Hmm.
I guess that doesn't. A McCoy does not fit well in the next generation crew.
Well, I think the doctor, the hologram from Voyager is a better McCoy than well,
Oh,
but
right.
then again, he has all those layers of like I'm 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 a program, so
Yes.
that's he has a bunch of stuff going on.
How about the doctor here? I'm just like we just mentioned the TNG
Huh?
female doctors, and we have one here who seems. I mean, she's pretty businessy, but not as curmudgeonly, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't really gotten to know most of the main cast all that well.
Well, she does have. That's why I said with the leads, they have a certain like I guess professional coldness. The same thing, and we were talking in 2001. People are like the astronauts don't even seem like humans, and that's because they're in deep space with professional coldness, I guess, which is also the case with these folks because some of the crew members that are not don't have like instance of command or a little more they act more human.
um, I suppose the funny thing is like, why do I remember this series as like Martin Landau always yelling at people, and it's not like that at all.
No, I don't think he yells that much.
Did I
Maybe in
just see
season
a
two.
specific episode where he just yelled a lot?
Yeah, he probably gets possessed and yells at people occasionally, that sort of thing.
Eh.
I think he gets shouty here and there. He's a commander. Commanders have to shout sometimes.
I know. I mean, Picard shouts,
Oh yeah, he's got a
but
great shout. Not anymore, but he used to have a great shout.
I think yeah.
I mean, it's still
Um,
great. It's just blown out now when he shouts, right? Because he's 80 something.
I mean, yeah, he knows. He probably knows how to use his voice because he's trained. He probably took like 20,000 hours of voice lessons just to do like Shakespeare in a theater with no microphones.
Right. I mean, I love that last season of Picard, but his voice is blown out a little bit, because he's
That
old.
was sort of yeah. That was sort of a bummer about Anthony Hopkins. Like recent Anthony Hopkins things is like he can't really yell anymore. It's like we've always had Anthony Hopkins look kind of like an older guy,
Mm.
but going back and watching Dracula, he had this like just screaming and physicality where it's like you're kind of scared of him. He's like a bear, but now
Right.
he's sort of like this.
Exactly.
And also there was that Marvel movie where it was obvious that he was just like, well, I'm going to die now and collect my paycheck.
Yeah,
There's
sure. Why
no
not?
reason for him to fucking die in that. Sorry. There's no reason for him to die in that movie other than he's like, well, I'm done.
I did that. Like I actually appreciate Bruce Willis's last 2 years where on IMDb his average rating was 4.0. But the reason he made 20 pictures in 2 years is because he knew he wasn't going to be able to make any more after that and wanted to make some
That
money
is
for his
not
family first.
that is not what happened.
Is not okay.
He had like an agent or an agency that just booked him for everything they possibly could just to make as much money off of him as
Oh, make money
possible
off film.
before he was
Oh,
unable
that's too
to
bad.
like remember lines at all anymore. Like
Mm-hmm.
apparently even in like Die Hard 4 and 5 he was incredibly difficult to work with because he kept forgetting lines and was angry that he kept forgetting lines.
And
So
four, that was
I
a
think
long time
it's
ago.
I think everything he's been in the last few years has been like just a sad exploitation of like a dying man. Even though I apparently a couple of those are really good, but I don't know which ones.
Oh, I mean, give it 20 years and you look
Well,
back and
no.
you have this amazing schlock run that's probably, hopefully at least, enough for a fun film festival.
Well, we
Anyway,
know
you
we
just
know we
dashed
have a
my.
Nicolas Cage film festival. Like we could just start a podcast now, every Nick Cage film, and we'd be going for like 3 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've had thoughts about that. Well, you could do Murray cast, then that could be fun until he finally completely 100% manages to cancel himself or something.
He's pretty close.
So maybe that one's not such a. I don't know. Is Nick
Like
is
I
Nick
was
Cage
watching the
beyond
new Ant
cancellation?
Man. I was watching the new Ant Man and was like, huh, some at least one of these people probably got screamed at and threatened by both Jonathan Majors and Bill Murray on the same day.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Um, Getting back to this episode, how do you feel about Barry Morse's role here? Because he's kind of put in as the third main, right? But he gets jettisoned in season two. And as I'm looking
Hmm.
at my notes, I'm like, well, he didn't really do much here. I mean, his
That's the
acting's
thing
great. He's
is,
very class, right?
I think he's great, but yeah, he doesn't have a whole lot to do, and it's kind of like several of the main cast seem that they are here to appear on screen and tell you things.
Well, that's kind of normal in this kind of thing. Like
Of
I mean,
course.
original series Star Trek again. The other than the three main leads, the other characters do way less than you remember them doing. When you watch
Well, of
those episodes.
course. You know, the Star Trek movies, I'm sure, did a ton of heavy lifting as far as like characterization
Right.
of
I,
those
I guess Scotty
characters
got
and
a fair
whatnot.
amount in the original series, but yeah, yeah. Takei, the other Koenig, they didn't get a whole lot in that original show.
Yeah.
um, and then uh, Shawn Nichols was basically just like the fact. Well, she wanted to quit, and apparently it was Martin Luther King was like, "You should
Yeah.
stay because you're a black woman on a primetime show regular." So even
Yeah.
if
I
you don't
mean,
have that much to do, just being there is important.
I hope she didn't regret that, and it makes it an amazing story.
No, I don't think she regretted that, unless she just
Good.
hated. It seems like she enjoyed going to the conventions. If she hated going to the conventions, then she would regret it. But
I think the only one who's really regrets their participation in the long term would be George Takei, but he's doing great on like social media and
oh yeah,
everybody
he's
loves him.
kind of owning it. He's America's grandpa now, right? So
He's great. I wish he was my grandpa.
he's America's grandpa, so you can claim him.
Okay. And I mean, even though we know that Shatner has kind of been a jerk to people at times, he did have that really cool thing that he said when he went to actual space,
He's your crazy great
Graceland.
uncle.
I saw him at a panel at DragonCon a couple of years ago, and it was very entertaining. He was great.
Well, I'm sure he's entertaining. You just dealing with him sounds like it can be quite trying sometimes. Did you ever hear the
Probably.
the weird stories about Henry Rollins hanging out with William Shatner?
No.
I think he talked about on on his podcast once. That's worth listening to. It's a totally
Huh.
bizarre story of
Because they were
Henry
both
Rollins
on like,
becoming buddies with Shatner.
yeah, they were both on like that. Didn't he show up on that William Shatner record that Ben Folds produced or something?
That could have been the case. That might be where they. I don't remember. It's been like 3 years since I listened to that podcast. Anyway,
Hmm.
um,
Okay. But yeah,
uh,
I do really like that William Shatner went to space and he released this touching statement that was like, I realize that none of this matters and we just need to preserve the Earth. Please save the Earth. We don't have anything but Earth. We just have Earth, which is really important right now.
Moonbase Alpha doesn't have Earth.
Nope.
They get this crappy
Moonbase
Terra
Alpha
Nova.
is Moonbase Alpha is exactly what will happen if we let just Elon Musk dump garbage on the moon for the next like 500 years or something. I'm just spitballing because
minus 25 years.
I
He'll
don't
do
think
it.
50 years of waste would actually do this, but
He'll put the waste on in reverse time, so the moon explodes in 1999 as it's supposed to.
yeah, I unfortunately cannot
It'll be
imagine
antimatter, which goes backwards in time.
I cannot imagine a reality in which we would have accumulated enough nuclear waste to launch the moon at like a near speed of light
I mean,
speed.
let's get back to the. That's not really hard science either, right?
Nope.
Now, here's a hard science movie that could kind of dovetail in with this. Solaris. A few years earlier, they don't go on to Solaris. I guess it's supposed to be an ocean world, right? But if it had land and they landed on it, I feel like Solaris would be kind of like this place.
I haven't actually seen it.
Okay, you could probably watch the Clooney one and get the main point because the original is great, but it's and if you think Kubrick's slow, um,
I
and
don't really mind
and
slow.
it's 3 hours. It's 3 hours slow in Russian. Like
Hmm.
there's 5 minutes of him staring at reeds with Bach playing. You know,
I
that's
cannot
it.
remember the last movie I saw where I was like, this is too slow. I don't mind slow generally.
No, the cool thing is space travel in that movie is a metaphor of shots driving down the Tokyo highways with all
Hmm.
the tunnels and stuff, bridges.
Okay.
So that's like the space travel in that movie. It's like metaphor because they didn't have like, a budget because it was a Soviet movie.
Interesting. Well,
So
I mean,
yeah,
there's all sorts of different ways to film your space movie. Unless you're Tom Cruise, then it will be simulated in some way.
but yeah, the like I'd say the original's better, but the newer one is pretty good. It definitely has more entertainment punch, right? Because it's a Hollywood, more modern like Hollywood Soderbergh movie, and it gets the main points across. It has cool production, and it's only 90 minutes, so it's kind of like, do you want to read the Bible or just watch an episode of Bible Man?
I mean, have you ever seen the film World on a Wire?
I have not.
It's a German movie that basically it's like The Matrix but with no special effects. It's just everything looks really cool and then the guy eventually finds out he's in a simulation.
Oh, okay.
And there's like no special effects at all. It's 204 minutes long. Uh Incredible film. I recommend this film to
Wait,
everybody.
how long
It's
did you just
great.
say it was?
204 minutes.
Yeah, that's where you lost me a little bit. Okay.
I think you would enjoy it. It's
Hmm.
really good.
I'd have to have that much time. That's the issue, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
make you
fine.
watch it for my birthday next year.
Yeah, okay.
I can't in good conscience do that, but I still highly recommend it.
Okay. You never know. When Lee does first show up, I just had like this alternate episode go in my mind because especially sleeping, he looks like Mr. Bean. So I was like,
He
how
looks a
fun
lot
would
like
this
Mr. Bean all the
how
time.
fun would this be if it like kind of turned into like a sci-fi Mr. Bean episode? That would be great.
Yeah, that would definitely improve this if he was a sci-fi Mr. Bean. Like he was just it's like he would just you'd just be minding your business and he would just show up behind you staring and then like drop something on you
Press a
and
few
then
buttons
disappear.
and then half the
Yeah.
moon base explodes.
Yeah, he just disappears like, whoa.
so so this you could look at this episode as kind of a disturbing Mr. Bean episode because the stuff that goes on the planet, I mean, that's like the violent side of Mr. Bean where everyone's like dying. So what okay,
This
I
is I don't think it was intended like this, but it's basically it's Garden of Eden again,
yeah, a little bit, I don't know. Okay, here's
right?
what
It's
I
like
see.
we found it. It's cool. We found a planet. Nope. For reasons you cannot be here.
Well, okay, so they
And
go down
also
and we
you could be like paradise is like paradise with your husband who's alive.
mm,
You can't have any of it
so
for reasons.
the last act of the episode is basically Dr. Russell's perspective, right? So she watches the moon
Mhm.
blow up. She watches everyone die, and then everything gets kind of reset. So what do you read happened?
Well, you could also read that as she wants to be with Dr. Koenig and feels super guilty about it. So she manifested like absolute chaos and then finally accepted that she was allowed to go on with her life after her husband being dead.
So what's manifesting that? Is she hallucinating? Is it happening in time as being reversed?
I mean,
What
she could have manifested Lee for all we know. He's not really a guy.
actually that makes sense from the Solaris position because in Solaris the guy on the space station just orbiting manifests his dead wife and
Mhm.
or whatever, and then he keeps trying to get rid of her by like putting her out the airlock and stuff, and she just keeps coming back.
I mean, speaking of George Clooney, like Sandra Bullock manifested him in Gravity a bunch of times, didn't she?
Think they were just I don't think she was supposed to be. I think they were just both out in space
I think he was dead though.
with the whole time.
I think he was dead early on, and then she was just sort of imagining him telling her what she needed to hear.
Really, I feel like after he dies in that movie, we don't hear from him anymore. But I only watched it once in the theater, so and that was what 10 years ago or Oh,
Me too, and I'm not going to watch it again.
hmm. It's like if I want to watch that, I'll watch Interstellar.
I'm not going to watch that either. Oh
Yeah,
wait, yes, I
well,
probably will
you are gonna
actually.
watch Interstellar eventually, but not for fun, I guess, for journalism.
Not
I'll
for
watch
fun.
it for fun.
Some of it'll be fun. I like the robots. They were cool.
I like that movie. I think it's a good movie. Okay.
I mean, it's cool. You have kids, you're allowed to believe that you could just go jump in a black hole and see them.
Mm. How about
That's
The
different.
Martian? How does The Martian rate with you?
I like The Martian a lot. I love The Martian. I liked it better than Interstellar.
Okay, I like Interstellar better than The Martian.
Well, the Martian is like a what do you call it? Like a clockwork thing where you're watching a plan. It's like a heist movie, but he's like heisting himself off the planet.
Can we assume he goes in the wrong direction? Interstellar is in fact a sequel to The Martian.
Sure, why
Okay,
not?
I think he makes it in the end, so that doesn't work. But unless he goes on another mission, yeah,
I
gets
certainly did
lost
complain
in
about
space
Ridley's.
twice.
I certainly did complain about Ridley Scott a lot earlier to be saying how much I liked the Martian, but
That's why I kind of brought it up. I'm like, I mean, that's obviously not his last movie. But it's like he could
10
make
years ago,
like, but
more than that.
if that were his last movie, if he were to make a movie of about that caliber now, you'd be like, he ended on a pretty good note, right?
Yeah, but it still wouldn't be one of his best.
Okay.
It's in fact, I mean, he almost gets out of the way of that movie more than now. It's been so long since I've seen it. It came out in 2015. I've only seen it once, like most things.
Just like this episode, talking about memories that you can't quite, remember. Um, I want to talk about how much of this is existential dread and how much of it's like fun sci-fi. Uh,
It's fun dread.
It's fun dread. Okay, because I actually felt it was pretty sci-fi, maybe because I was thinking of the alternative factor with Lee, right? But
Hmm.
then once he starts talking about what he actually is, with about 10 minutes left to go, that's where I feel like the key turns and now the dread factor is much higher.
What's a ghost story, but also how much dread can you really have in an episodic TV series where most people who are not red shirts are going to live?
Well, I guess my point with Space 1999 is the dread, existential dread is how close do they come to death in each episode. I mean, they do knock off characters
I
here
mean,
and there,
they
but
literally die in this episode and then come back,
yeah, that's kind of,
which
and that's why it's like, what exactly happened there? Do they get resurrected? Did they actually die and get resurrected by this planet? Was
they cured death. They cured death in the second episode.
Yeah. So again, I'm like, it's from Dr. Russell's perspective. So how much of it is it real? And that's where I was like, oh, do you want to go with the Total Recall thing where she actually just watched everything end and now the rest of the series is her hopeful fever dream?
I mean, Total Recall doesn't really do that, does it? Isn't Total Recall basically you see what happened and either it happened or it didn't? Like it
Okay,
didn't. Nothing
but
went. Nothing was undone. I'm trying to think of.
well, if it is
There's
all
got
a
to be
recall trip, all of
some,
it would be a hallucination, right? Or at
but you
least
never
virtual space.
see. You never ever see like what if Quaid was a real person. You never ever see what the aftermath of his life is. You
True.
you completely follow him into the. You follow him into the Matrix or into the Mars or into the John Matrix, whatever it is.
I mean, that
And
the best part of that is just that if you ask Schwarzenegger or ask Verhoeven, they'll give you opposite answers, which is fantastic.
yes, it's the only part of why that's one of the best movies ever made.
Mhm.
There is something. There's something I cannot remember where you see everyone die and then it's like, didn't Q do that in Star Trek Next Generation? That
Yeah, I think
happened at least
yeah,
once, right?
yeah.
He was like,
And then
you all
Riker brings him
died.
back, yeah, because he has Q
Right.
powers.
Yeah. So it's like that.
Okay,
So this
so
is sort of like Q if Q was kind of a drag,
yeah, had no sense of humor and occasionally talked like Satan.
which to be fair, I
They could have
think
done that.
an omniscient person might not be very fun.
Yeah, I mean, if this wouldn't be. I mean, if they had Trelane or Q on this, like the eccentric, wacky, omnipotent dude, that would not work in this episode at all.
But again, it's like I that brings me back to the Garden of Eden metaphor because like most religions, God have a God that is no fun at all. This guy is kind of like that. Like
So,
you would
so your thesis is God is a bummer.
My thesis is Saturn makes you into a god, and then you just bring down everybody's energy around you.
Not Jupiter.
Wait, was it Jupiter?
He says
Ah,
Jupiter. Well, there's an
Jupiter. It was Jupiter. I just get those mixed up
well,
because
you
the
read the
ring,
2001 plot
all
summary of the
ringed
book.
planets look the same. I'm sorry, I'm
I
not
I
racist.
I Jupiter has a tiny ring. No, I think the book it was
It's a
Saturn,
good
but
size.
it became Jupiter in the movie 2001 because it was too hard to make the rings. That was in Silent
Hmm.
Running takes place around Saturn because Douglas Trumbull was like, "Hey, I figured it out."
Huh. Did not know that.
Yeah, it was easier to do Jupiter on screen, and I do like that he eventually did figure out how to do Saturn as well. So, but if this if this episode is consciously making a reference point to 2001, of course they'd probably want to go with the movie version and say Jupiter, right?
Yeah, I think they just flipped a coin and picked a planet, and they decided not to use Uranus.
Mm, which is they should have.
They should
I,
have. I
it
came
was
from Uranus. I was changed by Uranus.
I got lost around Uranus. I
I'm now
disappeared around Uranus.
I am now antimatter because Uranus turned me inside out.
Yeah, okay. And then he could have been a wacky Q style omnipotent guy, right?
I
Making
don't think
Uranus
we're in
jokes.
for a whole lot of wacky stuff that is intentionally, deliberately wacky in this, right?
Not in season one. Season two is going to be a weird turn of the dial, by the way.
Okay, looking forward to it. Maybe.
Yeah, that's part of the thing in here. Like we're gonna do all. That's why I have the dread question because I don't think it's going to apply when we get to season two.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah,
feel
I
like season one is like basically the most existential dread you'll find in a sci-fi. At least one that has like spaceships and stuff.
yeah, it's like I can't turn off my modern whatever modern skepticism, modern eye, where it's like I see that I know that this crew will be back, so I am not particularly worried about them in the long term. And
Hmm.
that's part of why I think that's part of why so many things are serialized and half-ass serialized, and the serialization is done badly because they're like, well, people aren't going to feel tension unless we move the story forward. What are we going to do? I don't know. And then you
Well,
have
yeah,
Lost.
like we were putting on Bates. I said we were watching
Sorry.
Bates Motel in the house, and we watched 5 episodes. I'm like, this is just there's so. I mean, it's not a bad show. It's well made, blah blah, but it's very serialized. And like, why are all these things happening? This is too much. I'm just gonna watch Psycho, where like the amount of things that happen is the amount of things that happen, and it seems like reasonable.
Well, this is again a reason why you should watch Breaking Bad is because it moves forward but very on a very slow, very human scale.
Right. So yeah, and TV now has trouble with that. So
I think
um
TV even then had trouble with that. It's almost like you notice people don't complain about Better Call Saul because it's sort of stuck to the same thing. I think most people just cannot resist dropping tons of breadcrumbs and
I mean, it's
remember.
down to a thing like this show you would have watched weekly, and some shows do that. Modern Trek does that, right? Where the shows still they're streaming, but they come out weekly, and then you
Mhm.
or the Mandalorian. You have other things with where it's just like dump. You're never going to think about a specific episode when they've just given you 10 episodes that you're supposed to binge watch. Episode 6 no longer matters as episode 6, right?
I just don't know how to binge watch unless I really need to clean my room, and I could clean my room while watching all of it in a row. It's just
Oh,
not going to
I
happen.
mean, I don't know. It would take me at least 2 weeks to watch those 10 episodes, but they're all dropped at the same time, and there are people that are going to take a day and watch them all, right? So
Well, the funny thing is, the Mandalorian's weekly release worked really well for me until I stopped being interested in the Mandalorian, which was basically,
season
I
three,
mean, yeah,
I
Boba
haven't.
Fett stuff. The
Okay,
Boba Fett stuff was, but season three isn't particularly good as far as the first few that I've watched. But mainly, Andor came out right in the middle of that, and that was I like that so much better that I don't really care what else comes out. And also, I didn't really watch Andor religiously once a week for most of it either. I would be like, sometimes I'd watch 2 episodes, sometimes I'd watch it when it came out, just whenever is convenient. I like just whenever it's convenient is what I'm into. I mean, a
mm,
lot of people are just like, I know a lot of people will wait until the whole thing is out before they touch any of it, which
nah,
sounds
I
crazy,
no,
but
I that's why modern Trek I very much enjoy doing it weekly. and you could
Yeah,
think
Lower
about what you
Decks,
saw
same
for a
thing.
bit. Yeah.
Lower Decks I would watch pretty close to once a week. Not religiously, but when I had a chance. Um I definitely, if I knew how good the Peanut Hamper episode was, I would have watched that immediately, but
But yeah, it's I'm just extolling the benefits of weekly TV and episodic sometimes. Again, this I think this series is a good, example of episodic working pretty well.
mhm.
But
I mean, yeah, that's the thing is even if I don't feel a ton of dread, I still prefer this to having a bunch of dumb loose threads that don't even the prisoner felt like it had like a few things that felt like loose threads that were not picked up and they weren't even trying to serialize that.
yeah. So we'll see what happens because we're only on episode 2 or a later one, depending on what list you're looking at. But the next
Two, as
one,
far as your life is concerned,
the
this
next
is
one,
your schedule. We're
the
making
next
it for you.
the next one, although probably not the next one you and I will actually make a podcast for, but the next one that the
What?
listeners will hear, the next week for the
Stop
listeners,
confusing them.
Black Sun. Just think, I didn't say anything but Black Sun. Just think Black Sun.
Yeah, feel the black sun shine.
Oh no! Sorry, my DVD fell off my bed. Uh, so
Okay.
I guess
Do
we'll.
you always do that when your DVD falls off your bed?
I don't know. It was slightly surprising. Um,
Okay.
as for, I guess I'll wrap it up for today. So as for this podcast, we're doing this way in advance. I don't know what the social media is yet, but you can find us on Patreon at Podcastius, where we do other podcasts such as the aforementioned Films and Filth, where we talk about the 100 best movies as rated on IMDb, alternated with the 100 worst movies as rated on IMDb. Time Enough Podcast, we talk about the Twilight Zone, Occult Disney. We talk about the weird side of Disney films. And for the gamers, Luke loves Pokemon, about Pokemon families, Hyrule.
Interestingly, not to
You,
interrupt, I did
yeah,
interrupt.
you did interrupt.
The 2001 A Space Odyssey episode of Films and Filth should be out like really close to this.
Okay, so you can have a little bump and compare there.
Maybe we'll cross promote this thing.
Yeah, I don't think I said. I forgot to say which one. Game show where gamers
Game
game each
show.
other about games in a game.
In a
Okay,
game.
we can't
Did
stay
you say
here.
Hyrule Field Report? You said that.
I think that's where you interrupted me. Actually, that's about
Okay,
Zelda.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, since it's been about 4 months, we should all be about. They should all be about halfway through Tears of the Kingdom by now.
Yeah. Anyway, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Do not come to Terra Nova. All planets besides that are your planets. Go to one of the other ones.
Or that has dinosaurs like that short-lived TV show.
Yes, not the mama.
That's the wrong show.
I know.
Okay, I stop the recording.